All right. Here we are again. It is the new year, and this is From the Margins with James Auffant. My dear friend, Jimmy Auffant, he is a Central Florida attorney extraordinaire, a mentor to me, a dear friend, a father, a husband, a grandfather, and he makes the best holiday ice creams. He's also a stamp collector. Without further
Correct.
ado, Jimmy Auffant, how are you, Jimmy? Happy New Year.
It's a new year, new perspective,
Yes.
but in politics, the same old shit. But that's not something that should surprise us. I want to start the year by thanking Donald J. Trump for proving me right. I made a program over 45 days ago, and I said that Venezuela was not about, at any means, about regime change. It was not about democracy in Venezuela. It was about the oil. I got some people who agreed with me, but some people said, no, you're crazy. You're wrong. Well, Donald J. Trump proved me right. As soon as they took out Maduro, he pronounced 9 times, not one, not two, 9 times about the oil. He has left the old regime in power. The Chavistas are still in power. It's not a new democratic government. As a matter of fact, he went as far as to say that the person that was elected and should be there was an incompetent and was stupid. The word used was stupid, just for the record, and should not be in power. And he said, we're going to work out our deals with Darcy. He's not talking about feeding the people. He's not talking about sending food to Venezuela. He's not talking about fixing their grid system. He's not talking about anything but the following. The people of Venezuela are to pay back Coco and Exxon for the oil, for the lease that they broke with them about the territory. The truth of the matter is a little bit different. The lease was imposed. Okay, it was not something that was really, and it was never in the best interest of Venezuela, and it was affecting their environmental country. But Chavez was somebody who said these words to the people in Venezuela when he first got elected, because he was elected the first time around. As a matter of fact, in second and third, Chavez was elected. The one who stole the election was Maduro. But Chavez basically was saying, look, the Americans are oppressing us. The Americans are taking our gas and not compensating us adequately. They're screwing up our environment, and they're screwing up our economy. And if you ever went to Caracas, there was very rich people, but in the same city of Caracas, you could see slums, and I mean slums, just like when you in Barcelona. So the truth was that there was two classes: the oppressed and those who had money. Basically, the people started saying, yes, you're right. We need to change this. The American people have been, government has been oppressing us for too many years. We need to break away like Cuba did. Okay, so they broke away. They said, hey, your lease is about to come up. You're out of here. And they kicked out Exxon and Congo. They did. That's no doubt about it. It's their country. It's their oil. Okay. They said the lease is over. We're breaking it. Under their law, they found the legal way to do it. Yeah, they passed a law that the U.S. could question, but it was a law passed by their legislature. Okay. They were pushed out, and at that point, the oil was being sent to Cuba and other countries.
Okay.
Their economy was keeping afloat, but they could not export as much because Venezuela has a problem that most Americans don't know. It's called heavy
crude.
Heavy crude, which is good for two things: lubricants and asphalt. It's not good for gasoline. The cost to take that heavy crude and turn it into gasoline is extremely expensive. So it wouldn't bring down the prices. But these two companies, if you want to make a road in the United States or any place in the world, they control the heavy crude that would be needed to use to make your streets. And the same thing, you needed lubricants. Basically, the oil in the United States was not that good for lubricants, but the one in Venezuela is good. As a matter of fact, the larger producer until 2000 something of what you call
on.
Sorry about that, Jimmy.
Not a problem. The largest producer of petroleum Vaseline that a lot of us use came out of Venezuela because it's a lubricant that comes out of, believe it or not, heavy crude. So that is the reality. But he has not done anything about changing the regime. He has done nothing about changing the government in there. He's working with the government in there. And they can dictate and continue to kill people, and he has no problem with it, because it was kind of interesting to see the U.S. president and the people and the police out there are arresting those who cooperate with the CIA. What do you expect them to do? They cooperate with the CIA in this procedure. That is a crime in their country, and let me ask you a question. Let's say somebody has extracted Trump, and there was 12 or 14 Americans in Washington, D.C. who helped with that extraction. Do you think we would have arrested them? Of course. We should have. So, I don't, when people, they're arresting people, well, of course, they helped. They knew the risk, and they got it. Okay. But I really want to thank the president, because not once did he mention that he wants democracy in Venezuela, not that he required them to have new elections. He hasn't.
I thought that was I thought that was mentioned. However, I think you're right, Jimmy. It hasn't been made a requirement. I understood Secretary of State Marco Rubio to say that elections will be had, but of course, no timetable or anything like that.
Well, but with all due respect, I'm talking about Donald J. Trump, who is the president of the United States, who has the authority. He's never mentioned any elections or any democracy. I mean, I would agree, Marco Rubio has, but Marco Rubio, at the end of the day, doesn't have the power of Donald J. Trump. I think we could all agree on that one.
Yeah.
And to a certain degrry, Marco, the only thing he's interested really is supposedly invading Cuba, and there we're going to lose a lot of lives. But that's a story for another day. But again, I want to thank you, Donald. You proved me right. You are correct. You don't give a shit about democracy in Venezuela. You don't give a shit about the economy in Venezuela. You don't give a shit if the people in Venezuela eat or don't eat. All you want is your damn oil, and you want to give it to your rich friends in the United States so they can make money and they can give you money back through the back doors. You're meeting today to try to convince them to invest billions, if not trillions of dollars, to fix the infrastructure. Look, with all due respect to everybody, why would they do that? Yes, he's going to be in power for 2.5 years, and maybe if a miracle occurs, Vance or Rubio are going to be the next president of the United States, and they may or may not continue this, because at the end, Marco Rubio wants Cuba liberated. He doesn't really care that much about Venezuela. You read it. So it's a matter of how we're going to. Would I invest money that would take me at least 15 to 18 years to recoup back? To think that in 15 to 18 years, the government of the United States is still going to be having a blockade on Venezuela and a strong arm on Venezuela, and not have to deal with other issues. It is an interesting thing, but what is more interesting is to see that the Senate voted to limit his powers, and there was 5 Republicans who voted in favor of this. So it's not like it was the Democrats; it was 5. Granted, the 5 have their principles, and one is up for re-election, and she needs to show that she's not a servant to Donald Trump. But this is going to be an interesting way of seeing how this country goes. But it's been an interesting week.
Oh boy, has it!
I mean,
Yes, it has, Jimmy.
and
It
now,
is. It's difficult keeping up with everything with this administration. It seems to be something new every week.
well, yes, but you know why they're doing it, right?
Why is that?
It's called distraction.
Mm-hmm.
The media is talking about Venezuela, 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 Greenland, Venezuela, Greenland, Greenland, Venezuela. It has very little mention of the fact that more than 25 million people have been notified that their premiums have doubled or tripled for their health care, and there are people who can no longer afford health care. As a matter of
Right.
fact, as a side thing, very little publication was that the House passed a bill
Mhm.
backing the subsidies for the ACA, and it's going to the Senate now. But
Right.
that has very low coverage. It's everything is about Venezuela. Everything is about Greenland. Is he going to invade Greenland? It's what I call, let me distract you over here with something else. Why the rest of the stuff that is screwing you up is going on. Healthcare in this country, the cost has gone up 1 to 200%. People cannot
Mhm.
afford it, and you're going to have hospital filled with sick people because they cannot afford health care, and because under the laws of this country, if I'm sick and I go to the emergency room, you cannot reject me. You have to treat me and then bill Medicare, who at the end of the day is paid by the US government and by the states. So it's going to be a fascinating thing for people to start realizing. That's why the people have very little faith in the press. You have Fox
Oh,
News, who's to the right, you have CNN, who's to the left, but you really have nobody who's being objective or anything. As a matter of fact, right now, I'm going to say something so you can see how bad the press of this country is.
right.
You have a
Okay.
young man working out of the White House who has no journalism experience, who has no integrity whatsoever, and mentioning things that we already knew about Minnesota. That's not new news. That was in the news 8 months ago. Exaggerating it with no basis of proof of it, but limiting it to that. Look, was there fraud after COVID? Oh yes, was big. Was it
Oh
only in
yes.
Minnesota? No.
No.
Chicago? Ooh, yeah.
Sure.
But then Chicago is no news because corruption is something that happens every other week. So somebody took some money for COVID that they were not entitled to Chicago with. Who? The answer to that is who didn't. Uh,
Mhm.
and the same thing in New York and the same thing in Los Angeles. So, but they decided to make it an issue because they wanted to attack the governor of Minnesota, and they have succeeded. The thing of sending ICE to do what they did in Minneapolis, again, attacking a democratic state. That's why the people have very little faith in the media. The, I'll give you an example. Right now, other than the Sentinel and the St. Pete Times, very few people have reported what DeSantis did with the Medicare money here in the state of Florida.
Right. The Hope Charities, Hope Florida.
Okay, he, his attorney general, his lieutenant governor took money that was meant to be used by sick people in this state and took it away, and they claim that they spend it on a campaign to defeat the marijuana initiative. Part of it was used for that. The other
Mhm.
part, and this is where if those of us who understand politics need to tell you a certain truth. It was spent in media, but it also ingratiates them right now because people who they pay triple for an ad on TV are now doing the ads for the lieutenant governor.
Right.
If you search who did the ads for the campaign of marijuana and who's doing the ad for the lieutenant governor for governor, it's the same company. Coincidence? I don't think so. That they get along? I don't think so. That they're paying back a favor? I think so. That's the truth of the reality. So indirectly, we're using state funds to run a private campaign. not on paper, can't be proved, but you and I know that if I go to X company and say, hey, I'm going to spend with you $22 million for this campaign, but I'm going to need some help in this other campaign. So let's your hand wash my hand, and okay, fine. That is done every day in political campaigns and all around the United States. So let's not stop pretending that everything is unethical in other places and not here. So it makes me laugh. There's a lot of corruption in Venezuela, and what do you have here in the United States?
Ho, 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 ho.
So let's not start talking about corruption because, like, we're not a corrupt country. Because then you're gonna make me laugh.
There's a lot to unpack here, Jimmy. And I'm going to start with the whole Florida scandal with Governor DeSantis and his wife, Casey DeSantis. Do you suppose that because is it the Tampa Bay Times and the Orlando Sentinel or the St. Pete?
St. Pete.
Okay, St. Pete. That they're more left-leaning or alleged to be left-leaning and not necessarily dependent on the advertisement dollars of conservative causes, that they're able to speak more freely about this particular situation while others are not?
I think there's a certain degree of truth to that, but it's not because of conservative dollars.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of the matter is that basically, the Orlando Sentinel is dying.
Yes.
Okay. It's something that we don't want to talk here in Central Florida, but it's dying.
Yeah.
This is giving it attention. This is giving it a sense of purpose. This is proving that it still is reliable and that it's still something that is valuable. And the fact is that the same thing is happening with the St. Pete Times. That's why they combined to do the story, because alone they didn't have the power to do it. Second thing is, for some reason that I find very interesting, or not interesting, makes sense. The person who submitted this did not only submit it to Orlando and St. Peter, it did it to the Miami Herald, it did it to the name escapes, Tampa Tribune, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically they declined.
The Miami Herald declined.
Well, it never. I wouldn't say it declined. It never really published.
Okay, never really ran with it. Okay,
And that's a better way to put it. The Orlando Sentinel and the St. Pete decided to go in and do their investigation, and they found out that it's true, and they've been publishing it for the last 6 months, and we all know it's true. As a matter of fact, when asked, they said, go ask my wife, because she's the one who runs that. Why is his wife winning hope in Florida? I'm sorry, why is she doing that?
Sure.
That's the big question. When they asked him when they asked the Attorney General, how could he prosecute people for committing crimes when he is suspected of a crime himself, he said that he denied any knowledge of what was happening. He did not say it didn't happen. Listen to what he said. He denied knowledge of that happening. In other words, he admits it happened, but he had nothing to do with it.
Right.
In politics, you and I have talked to politicians and say, hey, don't say it never happened, because it did happen. Don't say you had nothing to do with it. Just say you had no knowledge of it. Okay? Because that way you could then have some deniability.
Right.
The truth is that basically we do know that this has happened, and it's been proven that the money was used for that purpose, and it's been proven that there was other people who were trying to defeat the marijuana thing and were successful and helped out, and they were also went through the state and put the money in and hope. As a matter of fact, there's a group that gave $10 million. Let's stop pretending. It's on record. DeSantis wants to leave his lieutenant governor in power and make him the governor of the state of Florida so he can retain some power. Because he knows that if Byron is elected, he's going to have no power whatsoever. He's going to have no grasp on the state whatsoever. And he is hoping to maintain that grasp. So when 2028 comes, he can run against Rubio and he can run against Vance.
JD Vance.
Yes.
Right.
So that to him is crucial. But realistically, I don't see any other way around it. The press does not investigate. The young man out of the White House who brought up the thing of Simonia, he's going with what he's being told.
Is that Stephen Miller?
Well, yes. I don't like to pronounce his name because he is an asshole. Sorry for those of you who were offends you, and for those of you who are assholes, you might be offended that I compared you with Stephen Miller. So, okay, I hear you when you say he's a super asshole. Okay, fine. I don't want to offend the assholes of the world by comparing them to Stephen Miller. They might have a point. At a point, you say, "Don't compare me to Stephen Miller." So yes,
Jimmy. And speaking of the situation in Minnesota. First, I'll talk about the alleged fraud of the home daycare, the home health, and other issues. You're right. There was an investigation in regards to Feed the Children, I believe the name of the organization, and there were whistleblowers, government whistleblowers, I believe 300 or more that try to provide information to the state government. And now Nick Shirley and the gentleman, David, the older gentleman who has provided Nick Shirley with some of these daycares who are offering daycare, and these children allegedly are not there. There's going to be some fraud. However, we're talking about millions, hundreds and hundreds of $1 million that may allegedly have made their way out of the country through remittances to Somalia, to the point where Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has stated that there's going to be possibly a new policy where remittances will be flagged if individuals are receiving public assistance. They have to note that on the paperwork when they do send money overseas. This is having a cascading effect across the nation, this investigation into Minnesota.
It's kind of interesting because I enjoy when Bassett decides to lie to this country.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's an industry in this country that is more powerful than we give it credit for. It is the industry of sending money out of the country. To be quite honest, and I'll give you an example. If you want to send money to El Salvador, you buy Bitcoins.
Yeah.
And you tell your family members, hey, I just bought in your Bitcoin account $500, so you should have money to buy food in there. Bitcoins are not traceable, and Bassett wants that because that's how he's making his own money. Some corrupt money he's making through Bitcoins. So it's the president. So when people say that they're sending money, yeah, what do you think Bitcoin has made its market? You buy Bitcoins and then you use them as currency in your country. Yeah, they're not traceable at all. The ones that are traceable is if you want to send money, the Mexicans send money through 3 large groups, including Western Union as one of them. Those are traceable, and they're dollar for dollar. And those we do know that a lot of Mexicans come here and from Honduras, El Salvador, and other countries to help their families out, and basically they send them money. As a matter of fact, Marco Rubio is a hypocrite. Do you know the biggest income for Cuba, where it comes from?
Remittances to Cuba?
From Cubans.
Mm-hmm.
Through Western Union.
Yes. Who is, by the way, creating their own I believe, a token or stable coin to make it that much easier to send remittances
Yeah, no, no,
to.
no. And you could go online. Seriously, you could go online and send money to anybody, any place. And God, I don't know how the government's going to be able to trace that one. But realistically, don't stop being hypocrites. The biggest supporter of the government in Cuba are Cubans who send money to their aunts, uncles,
Sure.
cousins, and stuff like that. They send them that. And not only that, they do send them packages, which FedEx and other companies are sending, and DHL, where they send them jeans, they send them medicine. I mean, they send them everything. It. If you guys talk about Simona, talk about it. It is an issue. But if you're going to talk about remittance, you need to stop being hypocritical. For years, even the Venezuelans have been sending money here to their relatives in Venezuela for years.
Yes.
For years. It's not. Oh, no. That is a known factor. So it's going to be. You have to be careful about mentioning that because we need to stop being hypocritical. We do send money to other countries, and with all due respect, if I earn $20 and I want to send it to St. Jude's Hospital every month, that's my money. Who are you to tell me how I spend it? And how are you going to question if my expenditure is legit? You don't have the bank capability to figure that out. So yeah, it is going to be interesting. Look, have money been misappropriated, taken out of the country? Definitely, in the billions. In the billions. Is it only the ones people in Minnesota? That's the problem I have. No. As a matter of fact, I know a U.S. senator who was in charge of a hospital and overbilled Medicare for over $1 billion.
Yes.
Okay.
Still a senator.
Returned part of it, kept part of it, left the hospital with almost $500 million in severance pay, took the race of governor with Mrs. Walz as his campaign manager.
Susie Wow.
Took out the person, Bill McCollum, who was the handpicked Republican candidate, took him out, put himself in, and the man was never a prosecutor, but we do know he was charged, he was accused of fraud. But he's a U.S. senator. So let's stop predicting all these things like the first person who did this was a group of Somalis. And it's wrong. Okay? It's like saying, I'm happy that they took out Maduro. He was a cruel dictator. He needed to be taken out. I agree with that. But stop pretending that that's going to fix the problems in Venezuela whenever the rest of the government is still in place. That's like eliminating Donald Trump and leaving Vance in power. That's not going to fix the problems in this country at all.
Right. That's true, Jimmy. The regime is still in power, and the opposing view would say, well, Maduro was the linchpin to a lot of the drug trafficking, the laundering of money to the cartels, and also you have Hamas, ISIS, Hezbollah. Getting some type of relief and comfort from the Venezuelan government through Maduro, and the drugs that have come through Venezuela and Colombia and Mexico and so forth and so on. We can attribute, I think, a good estimate. We can attribute about 200 people a day here in the United States dying from overdoses of fentanyl or whatever.
Yeah, but
So,
fentanyl didn't come from Venezuela. Fentanyl comes from Mexico and from China.
Yes, from China. There was a recent big bust in Canada of fentanyl, but that's a different story. But
and those people are white. They're not going to go to jail too much. They're white. Look.
However, I mean, Venezuela is very much known to support the cartels that have delivered drugs in the.
You have to be careful when you say that because it's partially not true. Venezuela has never supported it. it's been some generals of the Venezuela government who has. One is in jail.
Okay.
And basically, what they have done is kind of a, you have to be careful how you put it. It comes from Colombia and Ecuador. It really does. The cocaine comes from Colombia and Ecuador. We know that. It comes through Venezuela, up Panama, and it went through Honduras. And from Honduras, it was being imported to the United States. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what those generals were doing is they were taking what they call in Chicago, payola, and they looked the other way. Mm-hmm. That is true. How much was Maduro receiving of that? That's a question for another day. The interesting thing is that the two people that the U.S. government is counting to prosecute Maduro is the ex-president of Honduras, who is a convicted felon, and a general from Venezuela, who's also a convicted felon. But to be quite honest, if you look at those accusations, they have nothing really against his wife.
I believe, from what I've read and listened to, I believe his wife was very much integral to the whole process of funding the cartels with this drug money and
funding what cartels? What cartels? El Sol is an invention, you know that, right?
Oh yes, yes. But I'm talking about like Trinidad, I can't even pronounce the last name, but the Trinidad, whatever they call themselves, and then the other cartels within the Mexican government, which there's so many I can't even remember.
Oh yeah, but they had nothing to do with those. The accusation is kind of interesting. Is that it came through Colombia, it came from Colombia and Ecuador. It went through Venezuela, Panama, all the way up. And basically what they did is that in the conspiracy theories that they participated by allowing it to happen, that they should have stopped it. But I'm not sure, because I have not read in the accusation that they helped fund anybody at all.
My understanding is that Maduro was the financial facilitator to allow these transactions to occur, that the money was laundered through systems in place, that Maduro was integral.
Well, wait a minute. That's the same accusation they made to the president of Honduras. So it was Maduro, it was the president of and as a matter of fact, for the record, they presented evidence to that effect in a trial.
Yes.
And he was found guilty of doing that. So it's kind of confusing to me which one of the two really did it. I mean, I'm not trying to defend Maduro, but it's like, wait a minute, you're using the same shit that you used against this other guy, against this guy. But who was the one that was really, because the one, and this is something that is kind of interesting from the accusation, the one that was importing the drugs to the United States was not Venezuela. It was Honduras. It was going through Venezuela, no doubt.
Right.
It was passing through Panama and all those other countries until it got to what you want to call it, to Honduras, and Honduras it left and it was being distributed around the United States from Honduras.
Right, and my understanding is that Maduro helped facilitate all this. President Hernandez of Honduras was just a part of it that allowed a lot of this to happen, and he profited. And my understanding is that he was offered a pardon and he was pardoned. And my belief is that he was pardoned so that he could provide additional information that will help, one, bring Maduro down, two, allow the U.S. government to better understand this whole, drug trade that's happening, who was profiting from it, where the money is being stashed, which banks in the Caymans, in the Bank of London, and so forth and so on. And so I believe
In other
that.
words, we arrested a person, but we don't have the whole information.
I think Maduro. There was a negotiation that allowed Maduro to be scooped up out of Venezuela, and he'll have his trial. But at the same time, I would not be surprised that Maduro is offered a opportunity for his freedom, so that he could provide the American government
Oh, no, no,
more
no.
detail about what's happening.
The offer he had is he could go to certain countries and they were not prosecuted. The problem with Maduro, and this is something that the few things that I can understand about the man and agree with the man, this is kind of difficult for me to say, but Maduro said, I cannot trust a offer made by Donald Trump. That part I can relate to. You know what I mean?
So he and his wife are now sitting in New York City in the cell. I think that Maduro's going to offer enough information for the Secretary of State, for the Secretary of Treasury to follow the money and end a lot of the money flow to the cartels, to the
I don't. To
European
be
banks.
quite honest, I think we're giving
Okay.
him too much credit. I,
I
if there's one thing I've known about these things, is that the cartels don't even trust each other.
Sure.
If you have it in Bank of America, I might have it in Wells Fargo. If you have it, if you do the Southwell, I might be using it. So, and I'm not sure, and this is just me, that they say, hey, let's go to Venezuela and give our layout to Maduro. I'm not sure. You see, the thing that accusation is correct. It was going through Venezuela. He did not
Sure.
control the cartels. He was not the chief of the cartels, and the cartel people in Mexico, Honduras, and all those other countries. They're independent businessmen, so I'm not sure how much information he could provide. I'm more of this is a theater. Let me take out a bad dictator. Let me accuse him of that he participated and allowed drugs going to go through his country, which is true. He did. Let me put him in jail like I did with the guy from Panama. Oh, God, his name is Noriega. And basically, people in 5 or 6 months will forget about him. And that's fine. I don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Is it going to have any effect on the drug dealing? No. Look, right now, contrary to popular belief, the problem is not the cartels.
What would be the problem if it's not the cartels and the drugs feeding the system here in America?
The problem is that we're buying the drugs.
Yeah, it's true.
Look, they're not forcing us to use the drugs. They're
Mhm.
not doing anything. There's a demand, and these people are very entrepreneurs, and they're providing a supply. It's kind of strange that people have been told for years that fentanyl could kill them, and they're still buying them.
Yeah, that's true. Human behavior is odd.
People have been known for years that cocaine could kill them, and the cocaine is promised since the 60s. It's over it's almost 75 years old, and have we really made a dent in it? Really not. We think that if we eliminate the suppliers, that the problem's going to go away. Well, there's other drugs that go. That's why there's fentanyl, because the cocaine went down for a period of time. That's why they went down. There's also people using heroin that had disappeared, and people are using morphine that my all-time favorite. They just Donald Trump disclassified marijuana. You know that, right?
Yes, he did. It's a Schedule 3 narcotic. I think that's what they call it. Okay.
And basically, for years, you and I were told that marijuana was the doorway to heavier drugs. That marijuana was a bad drug for you. That marijuana caused as a matter of fact, our governor here in the state stole money from Medicare to prevent people from smoking marijuana in the state.
Mhm.
Sorry, but I'll call it as it is. So realistically, when people tell me, well, what is the problem? The problem is demand. As a matter of fact, there was a part of the movie American Made where basically Pablo Escobar tells one of his pilots, son, I need to deliver more. If I do not deliver more cocaine, my competition will do so.
Yeah.
Basically, what he was trying to say, look, I'm pushing it because either I supply it and make the money or somebody else. Does that sound like a typical businessman? Yeah. And that's the problem. We do not want to admit in this country that we have an addiction problem, that we spend more money fighting the drugs coming in than we do in treating the addicts.
Mm-hmm.
We stigmatize the addicts. As a matter of fact, it's kind of interesting. This is a very few known factors. In the 80s, the moron of Ronald Reagan passed a law with the House and the Senate making the crime of crack cocaine double sentence than powder cocaine. Do you know why?
Well, because more people of color, black people, brown people, were selling and using it.
Why? Because crack cocaine was called the drug for the poor.
Mm-hmm.
Was it more potent? No. Was it more dangerous? Not really.
It's cheaper.
It was cheaper. That was the whole thing. Okay. I had a client who got more jail time, who happened to be black, simply because he had two rocks in his pocket.
Damn.
And when he was drug tested, he was clean.
Mm.
2 rocks was too little to be a drug dealer. You know why he had 2 rocks? He was 22 years old. There was a lady who said she would. Did you ever, you saw the movie? Oh my God! And where she offers to do something in exchange for some cocaine. 22 rock.
No, I don't. I don't think I've seen it.
Basically, when he was asked by a judge why was he carrying, he says, "Well, I'm 22. This girl in my neighborhood said if I brought her 2 rocks, she would."
Sure.
So part of the addiction is, and part of the people in jail are not necessarily, but what you're doing is you're incarcerating addicts. And what do they go in jail? They maintain themselves as addicts because for those of you who do not know it, the best moonshine is in Florida jails. Okay, best moonshine in Florida is made in Florida prisons. And if you don't think there's drugs in the Florida jails, you are kidding.
Oh, exactly.
Did you ever see the movie Goodfellow?
Of course.
Do you think that was a joke?
Nope. Nope. It was true. It was true.
And that's what I'm trying to say. With people, no. If we make it a crime, they'll stop using it. That's as stupid as thinking that alcoholism can be incarcerated. An alcoholic needs to stop drinking, needs rehabilitation, needs treatment. Now, let's get a clearer thing. There is another group of drug addicts that were created by the medical profession.
That's correct. That would have been the
OxyCondom.
Yeah.
But the majority of those people were white and they were treated as addicts. That's the problem that we have in this country. If we want to talk about the reality of this country, if you're black or if you're Hispanic, you're measured completely differently than if you're white.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, when Donald Trump was elected, I did not go out running in the middle of the streets asking I want my country back. But it did happen with somebody else.
That's true. That's very true.
Okay.
Before we leave Venezuela, real quick, Jimmy, 2 questions. One, instead of Venezuelan oil going to China and whoever else, isn't it better that it comes to us since oil? Since Trump proved you correct, and then second, will free and fair and transparent elections come to Venezuela?
Let me start with the second one first.
Okay.
I don't see a push in the American government to do so. I think that as long as the vice president continues selling the oil to the United States, Donald Trump has no interest in trying to elect somebody else who might say no. He's not going to risk. Simple as that. Not going to risk.
Okay.
And he likes dictators. He doesn't like elected people, so he might not push for that. Rubio might try to push for it, but I don't think he's going to convince the president over that. As to the second one, I'm going to talk to you as a person who believes in the free market.
Okay.
It's my product. This is my price. I don't give a shit where you're from. If you're willing to pay for it, that's it. China's been selling to us for years. As a matter of fact, because they make it cheaper and everything else. And we have no problem buying from China. And China has no problem selling to us. Is the oil from Venezuela going to make our oil cheaper? No. Is all the oil that's going to come out of Venezuela going to come to here? Knowing Donald Trump, and if he's correct in what he's telling us, that he's going to get the best price he can get for it. If the offer comes from Cuba to buy it at a better price than Coke or Exxon, yeah, he'll sell to them. That's what we would call open market. That's what we call the highest bidder. That's what we call the best price. You could call it whatever you want. So the fact that they're selling us bullshit that is better for that oil to come to us, why? Do we have an energy crisis in this country right now that I'm not aware of? Is there a shortage of oil in this country that I'm not aware of? Is it a fact that half of the time I'm making long lines in gas stations to buy gasoline in this country? No. This is more of a control thing and making money for the rich and the powerful. It has nothing to do with you and me. He's not calling you to the White House. He's not asking you to do anything. He invited the rich and powerful, Coco, Exxon, BB, and all these other people, come here. I want you to invest in here, and I'm going to get you these leases, and you're going to put money in my pocket, and we're all going to make money here. He does not care about you and me. You need to understand one thing. Donald Trump does not care about the American people. Donald Trump cares about the rich and the powerful and them putting money in his pocket. That's all he cares about. So this thing that the more is better for the oil to be with us, what oil? 50,000 gallons a day that they're taking out of Venezuela right now does not cover Puerto Rico's consumption. That's what you understand.
Sure.
We consume daily 10 times that amount. So is it going to? No. Let me give you this bullshit. This is what about. Look, for months you were told we're taking out Maduro to make the country a democracy. We're going to end his corrupt ruling. Who did we leave in power? The same government without him. Are they still corrupt and they're still Chavistas and they're still tendency to the left? Yes. Are they going to continue oppressing the people of Venezuela? Yes. As long as they sell us oil, Donald Trump doesn't give a shit.
And also their precious minerals.
Yeah, that's true. And the one that scares me is Greenland. That's another story for another day.
I'm ready to jump into that one. But you know something? There may be some movement on Greenland and Cuba in this coming week. So, what the future holds for us, we shall see. Are you ready to take on some comments?
Let's get to the comments.
Excellent. So we got some really good comments over the last month or so, and I know that most of the comments were based on your comments about what has Trump done to improve our
You're right.
lives. And so again, there's let me pull up some of the comments here. That and it did this was one of the longer threads, Jimmy. Um, my gas is cheaper, my groceries are cheaper, my heating oil is cheaper than last year. That was from Garden 14777.
Wow, that's interesting. Please tell me where you live so I can move because my gasoline is basically the same price. I would say the problem with gasoline is in Florida is that one week is 289, the next week is 279, the next week is 299, the next week is 329. So it's all, the prices are all around in Florida. Maybe where you live, you have a better thing. Food prices, I have not seen gone down. That
Mhm.
I have to call you out on that one. Heating and oil, I don't know because uh, uh, maybe when you went to Chicago, you could tell me about that one. But I don't buy heating oil, so I'm going to have to accept your assertion because realistically, here in Florida, we don't use heating oil, so I have no way to debate that point. But realistically, say that everything is cheaper, you're full of shit.
Also from Instagram, Dave87 GN, he says he cut his own taxes. Other than that,
He cut your taxes to justify cutting the taxes to the rich. You are correct. And be careful because in 8 years, just like the Obama subsidies expired, so will your tax cuts expire.
mhm, mhm.
And the question is, other than that, you're right. He hasn't done shit for you. Listen to your own self. He cut your taxes. Are your prices cheaper? No. Is your life easier? No. Has he done anything to help you breathe healthier? No. By the way, one thing I could tell both of you, you don't mention your health care. That's why I have a problem with both of you. Because you can't tell me that your health care is cheaper. Because you know that's
Yeah,
how.
that's a good point, Jimmy. Of all the comments I've reviewed in the last month or so, there's, if any, uh, few, if any, mention of healthcare. And I have another interesting comment, more thorough, more thought out, from Instagram, and then I'll bounce to TikTok. Leroy Cayley stated, I have contractors calling me back to work now because of the deportation that President Trump has done because the market is not flooded. No more gas. The market is not flooded no more. Gas is down to 230 a gallon. My 401k is going through the roof. And it's not because we were printing money and throwing it in the economy like cash for clunkers. Trump has found a way, has found fraud in Minnesota. He's bringing it to the table. The Democrats did nothing. They're crooked liars. They only think about themselves. And look how Rich Pelosi got it. We've got a lot of comments similar to that. And we spoke to that in our last podcast episode. What's your thoughts on that?
Are you telling me that the Republicans are not making cash? Are you telling me that our president is not corrupt and making cash through his Bitcoin system? Are you telling me he did not sell pardons for $1 million to people that were convicted of crimes? Are you telling me right now that the government of the United States has done anything for you? Look, the problem with this comment and comments like this is let me criticize the Republicans, the Democrats. First of all, 401ks is a stock market. Stock market has nothing to do with one person or the other. As a matter of fact, the most productive stock market was under Obama, but we don't mention that because That he's a Democrat. We don't want to do. And the second most productive market was under George Bush. So I'm going to give credit to a Republican, which you wouldn't do to either, because you only have these blinds that only show you that your party is right and the other party is wrong. And that's what's wrong with this country. You cannot accept that your party is wrong. You cannot accept that your president is corrupt. You cannot accept that your party's done nothing to help you. And again, you do not mention health care. I defy you to tell me that your health care has gone down, because you know that's a lie.
Well, Jimmy, I went to TikTok and I looked for any comments about healthcare, and there were several responding to the one short form content. Republicans risk losing voters by ignoring ACA subsidies. Big Trumpy stated 24 million were covered by Obamacare. That shows the disaster. That was Big Thumpy.
24 million recovered from what?
Were covered by Obamacare. That shows the disaster.
Disaster of what?
That
Are you telling me that it's a disaster to help people out? Paying their premiums for the healthcare? Is that a disaster?
I'm presuming that only 24 million were covered. Not enough?
Well,
maybe.
First of all, the number is invented because the subsidies have been more than 24 million. As a matter of fact, states have received for Medicare expansion more than 24 million. As a matter of fact, the state of Florida rejected almost $500 million in subsidies, something like $520 million that was going to be sent there. So I don't know where the 24 comes from, because it makes no sense. But if he's trying to say that that Obamacare was a disaster, ask the 22 million Americans who depend on it if they think it's a disaster. If they do, you're fine. If you're lucky that you are able to afford to pay your own health insurance, more power to you. I have no problem with that.
Right. There's one comment that I think falls in line with what you're saying, Jimmy. This is from Robert Espinoza 813, and Robert says the ACA is good for how it's supposed to work. The problem is that as long as it's profitable by way of deductibles to the insurance companies and any other way it can be stolen from, it will never work for the American people the way it's set up to do.
Robert, I agree with you in part. It does have its problems, like everything that the government creates. Republican or Democrats, for the record, because they're so corrupt, both parties, that the insurance companies basically put money in the pocket. Look, I have said this, and I have said it, and I'll say it again. Take Medicare, bring it down from 65 to 50, and the insurance companies will be forced to have people from 49 to 25, and trust me, that market would reduce, and the prices will become more competitive because there's less people to go in there. The problem right now is that the biggest group that is increasing our prices to healthcare is 15 above. We know that. Okay, why? Because they need more healthcare, particularly that group between 60 and 65 that doesn't have health insurance and that has lost their jobs, or their jobs cannot afford to continue them on health insurance plans because of this. That's why Obamacare insures people who work, because not every employer in this country provides health insurance. We know that too. So the truth of the matter is, yes, it does have that fault. And that, okay. Robert, I agree with you 200%. The problem is that basically that is the programs, that's the problem of using private industry saying, hey, we'll pay you a subsidy, but you need to help us out here. And they'll take a subsidy with a $5,000 deductible. and you will be paying zero because you have $5,000 deductible. Granted, it's kind of interesting, but if you're healthy, you have health insurance in case you get sick. That's correct. And if you end up in a hospital in the first hour, your $5,000 deductible will be covered. So that's another thing that is interesting. So, as a matter of fact, let me tell you a little secret that most people don't know.
Okay.
A lot of people that have that $5,000 deductible this month of January will go into the emergency room because they're sick. The first hour they will cover the $5,000 deductible. The hospital will send them a bill for the $5,000, and they'll send the hospital $50 a month, and they have health insurance for the rest of the year because they have covered their deductible. Look, never underestimate the ingenuity of the American people. Robert, just have to be creative. Oh, for months they've had a bad cough or whatever, and they go in there and they're checked out. They do X-rays, they do this. $5,000 is covered. Bingo. Now you go into having regular medical care with a deductible in the sense that you have to pay your doctor, and they pay $50 and you have to pay the other $20. But that's every health insurance in this country. Let's stop pretending that there's health insurance other than Medicare that pays 100%. So it is what it is. But one of the things that those of us who work in the area of disability know is that come January, February, people would end up in the hospital. They treat it. Here's my insurance. Oh, you have a $5,000 doctor. Okay, send me the bill. Hey, here's $50 a month. And the next year, here's $50 a month. And people say, well, really? Yeah. Look, there's more than one. If the insurance companies could be creative, the American people are creative. And then let me tell you something. The insurance companies are starting to investigate these people because it's kind of coincidental that every January they get sick. And as a matter of fact, there was one that I never forget. On New Year's Eve, he walked into the hospital. He was drunk. He was falling. He was this and that. And he was throwing up. And the hospital admitted him. And other than the fact that he had eaten and over drinking that night before,
right.
There was nothing wrong with him. But the hospital was very careful because the man had a heart condition. So they decided to take him in and
take care of him.
They did. And the deductible is cut. So it is a high deductible. We just have to know how to manipulate your way around. And I'm sorry if the insurance companies are going to get pissed off at me for saying something that I should have said.
Right. One more before we get to our favorite portion of the episode. And it pretty much sums up, a mixed bag of this economy that you've been talking about. This is Thana84. And Thana said, I definitely feel things are cheaper now. My gas is cheaper. My groceries are cheaper. My insurance, both health and personal property, such as home and auto, continue to be out of control.
And she's right. Now, I do not know about food being cheaper because I really don't. And I'll be honest, I keep hearing that, but when I go to the stores, I don't see it. But
sure. Here's
something that you might want to chew on. For those of you who say that everything is cheaper and that your tax has gone down and you're concerned about waste of Obamacare money, it is estimated that this little game with Venezuela has cost the United States government $500 billion.
Whoa.
If you think sending ships down there, sending helicopters, doing explosive, using software to take out a section of the grid in Venezuela, in Caracas, and do certain other things that needed to be done to do this extraction and to take all these ships down to Venezuela and to put everything there. It's cost you. As a matter of fact, just so everybody knows, it's cost more than $5 million. $5 million to rent a small airport in Puerto Rico. And the only reason we know about it is because the airport belongs to the government, and somebody in Puerto Rico decided to go on the Freedom of Information and got it. And that's up to now. So if you want to talk about waste, I have one question to you. Talk about the waste of Venezuela. Is it going to? Oh, they're going to repay us. You're full of shit. They're not going to pay us for the cost of invasion. What he's securing is that they pay back Exxon and Conco, and that part of the money go back to pay the private industry. He's never said to pay for the cost of the invasion. So that's something. So are we ready for the fuck ups of the week?
Yes, we are, sir. Let's get to it.
Okay, let's get to the one for the Republicans.
Okay.
Yes, certain group of people are happy about Venezuela. Yes, certain people are happy that Maduro's out. Yes, the average American in Wisconsin, if that's improved his life, and they'll tell you, no. They're hopeful that the oil from Venezuela will reduce their gas prices. What I don't think they know is that we have not been buying gas from Venezuela for some years now. Okay, so it hasn't, and it hasn't even been something that is being brought into the prices of petroleum and of oil. So that's not it. The fuck up is that basically you were clear of your intentions, Mr. President. You don't give a shit who governs Venezuela. All you want is to get the oil out of Venezuela, give it to your rich friends, let them make money, and use the excuse that it's going to come here. As a matter of fact, when Conco and Exxon had the oil refineries in Venezuela, they were selling them to Cuba. They were selling them to the Dominican Republic. They were selling it to Honduras, Panama, and all those countries because they were nearby and the cost of transportation was cheap. Not that they were doing them any favors. And at the same time, the tankers would come loaded up, and whoever bought it would get a delivery. Simple as that. It was an Amazon. You ordered this, you got it. It was not that it was all coming to the United States, because that's not true. That is a big lie. Less than 10% of the oil in the good old days produced in Venezuela was coming to this country. So, to the American people, to repeat the words of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Mr. President, you need to take care of the problems in the United States, and we have a lot. Yeah. You do not need to take care of the problems in Venezuela, and that's the way most Americans think about this. So if you think that this was something that made you gain points for the first time, Mr. President, you had your Senate vote against you over Venezuela. Your Senate, 5 Republicans voted against you. The American people, contrary to popular belief, I don't think the American people care that much about that as they care about the fact that their health insurance has gone up. They care about the prices of their food. They care about the prices of their heating oil for those who use heating oil now that it's a winter. They care about the prices of everything. As a matter of fact, there's more social media thing right now about Bad Bunny and the Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, right now, if you go into YouTube, the hits are going over which NFL coach was fired. People in Chicago getting excited that their Bears are going to be back in the playoffs.
Go Bears!
Exactly. So when people think it's Venezuela, not really. Yeah. So your fuck up is that you're not handling the matters that count in this country. Now, Democrats. Yours is a lot simpler. You have made a success out of the seven Republicans who voted to pass the ACC to the Senate. Unfortunately, in the Senate, I don't think you have the votes to pass it. And I can guarantee you, if it goes to the president, he will veto it. But the intelligent thing is to try to get the president to veto it, because then his popularity will go down. But I don't think you're thinking that far away. Plus, right now, you still don't have a leader. You might not like Donald Trump, but he is the leader of the Republican Party. You might disagree with him 100%. He's the leader of the Republican Party.
Right.
Who's the leader of the Democratic Party?
No one.
And
It's
without
not
leadership, that is your biggest fuck up of the week. So, with that, subscribe, comment. I respond to your comments. We might agree to disagree, but I respond to your comments. And most important, give me likes or unlikes, because that way I know if what I'm doing is right. Not that I really care that much, because I'm going to speak my mind, but I still want to hear your opinions about it. So with that in mind, I will see you next week. Take care.
Thanks, Jimmy. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.